little dove. I like to teach the world to sing. Sing with me. And keep it company.
Well, that's how what many people call the greatest television show in the history of television ended last night, as Don Draper was in a yoga position with a smirk on his face, hinting that maybe, just maybe, he had something to do with the world's greatest commercial, which then came out in 1971. Gail Pennington, TV critic from the St. Louis Post-Dispatch.
Good morning. Have you warned about spoilers here, McGraw?
Yes, we have. And if you
over and over, so you've just had people who were busy last night just turn you off today.
First of all, whoever watched it, you don't watch. I mean, yeah, maybe you miss a normal one, but you don't miss the final.
I heard that someone who's here with us right now might have missed the final.
Well, she missed the final, but she watched it on Twitter the whole time.
Well, that scares me so much.
Right, that's a whole other issue. Exactly. Right. Yeah. So yes, we are going. If you haven't missed it, turn off the radio or listen at your own peril. So, what'd you think?
I was a little bit disappointed.
Mm-hmm.
Some of it I liked. I was really hoping for more time spent with people we know.
Right.
And not with hippies at a retreat.
Like the guy who makes the last... I mean, I'm looking at the clock. There's minutes left. And there's
how could this possibly finish in a minute?
There's a 3-minute speech by some guy we've never seen before.
About being lonely.
About being lonely, and Don Draper is just listening to this guy as it isn't just, it's like a close-up of this guy.
Yeah.
And then,
it went on forever.
It went on forever, and I guess Don finally connected with this one stranger man. We think.
I think he got the idea about the refrigerator. He probably used that in his pitch to Coke.
But so, all right, a couple of things. I noticed, I was originally very surprised that Don didn't go back home when he found out that Betty was dying.
She asked him not to.
She also asked him not to cheat on her, and he cheated on her. So,
right.
So who cares? I mean, I would think that even though he wasn't the world's greatest dad, he was kind of a good dad to those kids. And so I kind of thought in their hour of need, he would have come back for them.
Right.
But he doesn't.
But supposedly the boys didn't know.
Right.
Although it turned out Bobby did.
But Sally knew, and so he should have been there for Sally. Mm-hmm. Right? And part of the problem is that, right, he didn't have any parents, and so even though he wasn't the world's greatest parent, he was a pretty good dad to those kids.
Right. I thought he would go back then. I was predicting all week that would be the impetus for him going back to New York.
Right. And then Betty, the only person she cried about her illness to was to Don.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, what did you think of that scene, Gail? I did see that scene when...
Don and Betty on the phone?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. I thought that was a great scene. I thought it was very typical of what their relationship has become.
So, I liked all the loose ends they sort of tied up with.
The Pete stuff, leaving for Wichita, was great, just one scene, and the stuff with Joan starting her own company, I loved that.
Right. I liked Jay.
How'd you feel about Peggy and Stan?
We had Jay Ferguson on the show a couple of months ago, and he came in and he says, look, I don't know, don't tell me, I know nothing. Mm-hmm. I guess a lot of people, I mean, I never saw them as like lovers, star-crossed lovers that could never really figure it out. But
no, but they were best friends for years and years.
Right, yes. So I don't have a problem with that.
No, I liked that part too.
Yeah. But did they insinuate that somehow Don had something to do with the Coca-Cola commercial?
It was implied, I think, in the look on his face. And did you notice it in the Coke commercial? There's a woman who with pigtails and ribbons in her pigtails who looks very much like the woman who was at the retreat.
Okay.
Possibly the same woman.
Right, okay. I've got to go back and look at that.
Maybe that was supposed to be a clue.
Okay.
Matt Weiner had said before, when asked specifically if Don was going to come back and write that Coke commercial, he'd said, well, it's a really famous commercial written by a person whose name is well known in advertising and pretty much suggested it. I think that's why it wasn't more overt, because we would have all liked to see Don come back, walk into a meeting with Coke with that idea.
Right. Well,
but did we really want to see him go back to New York, though? Did we really want to see him go back to advertising?
I wanted to see him leave the hippies in California and go back to the people we know.
I tend to agree with you there. However, there was a Coke reference in the beginning of the show.
Yeah.
There was.
When he was on the phone with Peggy, she said, "Don't you want to work
on Coke?
Don't you want to work on Coke?"
Right. And then, of course, they have the Coke at the end. And then Frank pointed out that he fixed the Coke machine in last week's episode.
Right.
Yeah. Which was a sort of a weird, hey, the Coke machine's out, will you fix the Coke machine?
Well, he was working on cars last night, and I don't think that implied anything.
Well, no, I understand that, but the Coke was, it was too many coincidences with Coke. So clearly, you don't have to be hit over the head by a bottle of soda to know that maybe they're implying that he had something to do with the Coca-Cola advertising.
Yeah, I think it was. We were definitely supposed to get that idea.
Right. But it's almost like, but again, the man doesn't really change. The man has never changed. And did he finally hit rock bottom when he finally decided to change while in a yoga position?
But arguably, if he got, he was in a yoga position, meditating, getting in touch with himself, comforting a stranger for a sad story. But he was using all that for when he goes back to advertising. So he probably hasn't changed.
I also thought the Utah Salt River Basin, that's been used.
Bonneville Salt Flats,
yeah, that's been used in a couple of commercials as well, hasn't it?
I don't know why we were with those people either, and I don't know why we were with Stephanie, Anna's niece.
Right. Well, he had to somehow get to this Buddhist colony or wherever he was
at. Or he
at.
could have just gone back to New York after he talked to Betty on the phone.
I'm with you. A lot of strangers came into his life these last couple of episodes and as you wrote in your story, we don't have time for this. Right?
Yes.
Right. Get to the ending.
And don't you think everybody last night, as the time ticked away, we were saying, please, how are you going to end this in 7 minutes, 6 minutes, 5 minutes?
Yeah. And it ends with, what a weird way to end a show, having somebody you've never seen before give a 3-minute speech.
Well, remember how The Sopranos ended? Cut to black. And Matthew Weiner worked on that show, too. And a lot of people think it was the greatest finale ever, and a lot of people think it ruined the show. So there's going to be divided opinion on this, too. There already was last night, right after it was over. People were saying it was perfect, it was horrible.
Right, yeah.
We always want more closure, though, when we see finales.
Well, yeah, that's a good point. What do we want in a finale? You have to end it somehow. All right, so now we live in a world without Mad Men.
And we live in a world with The Bachelorette as of tonight. Are you in?
Of course I'm in.
Kelly's sighing very deeply.
When do we find out which one they pick?
I don't know at what point the men are going to make their choice, whether it will be tonight or whether they'll string it out.
I also think it's kind of sexist that the men sort of decide.
Oh, I know. It's horrible. Men are always in control.
It's terrible. Can we talk David Letterman for a moment?
Uh-huh.
This is it, right? He's leaving on a Wednesday.
Wednesday night is his last show.
What a weird night to leave.
I don't know why they chose a Wednesday either.
Yeah.
Well, I guess you wouldn't have as many people watching on a Friday.
All right, that's fair enough. But Tuesday night is the final guest, and then Wednesday is what? Him saying goodbye for an hour?
Surprises. I have not enjoyed this run-up to the end very much because every guest who comes on just is all fawny over Dave for their whole time.
You don't like that, huh?
Well, it's not as good as a regular show would be.
Did you see, what was it, the comedian, Norm? I can't think of the name.
Norm Macdonald.
Man, he just really let loose and cried. He got so emotional.
I think David Letterman has done a lot for these guys behind the scenes.
Yeah. Right.
To sort of help them along, which I think is the biggest difference between him and Jay Leno, right? When Jay Leno went off, There wasn't this outcrying of emotion from many of the Hollywood stars.
But Leno may have said no. He may have said, "No, don't do it."
Well, I can't imagine Letterman saying, "Yes, please come on my show and sob uncontrollably."
Letterman's interview with Jane Pauley yesterday on CBS Sunday Morning was excellent.
Oh, I got to go back
Very
and look at
long and 2 long segments, and he really was very open about his feelings.
Maybe David Letterman in the season finale and the series finale of the David Letterman show, he ends up in Pepperdine in a yoga position, somehow chanting, and it turns out he is in charge of the new Coke commercial.
I bet that's what happens.
Yeah. All
Well,
right.
let's write that down, McGraw.
There you go. There's an idea.
Okay.
All right. Gail, we will read your Mad Men column at stltoday.com, and have a good week. We'll talk to you next Monday.
Bye, guys.
Bye, Gail.
8:30 here. Big 550 KT.